She was drenched, stranded, and invisible to the world, until the man who never stopped for anyone hit the brakes. The man was Roman Kael, and the woman he pulled over for? Isla Mirren, who had no idea her life was about to change forever. Chicago had always carried a bite in its autumn air, cool enough to tug at your skin, but warm enough to make you linger outside longer than you should. The leaves were the color of fire and honey, dancing along Michigan Avenue like they had somewhere to be. Isla Mirren was running late. The Uber app glitched mid-route, dropping her off 3 blocks from her destination. A client meeting, possibly the one that could tip her career out of the freelance grind and into something permanent. She was an interior designer, not the kind that flipped beach houses or hung up live, laugh, love signs. Isla specialized in breathing identity into cold spaces. She loved buildings that didn't beg for beauty, but earned it. Today wasn't beautiful. Her heels were screaming. Her hair frizzed at the crown. And when the clouds cracked open, she didn't even flinch. She just kept walking, soaked to the bone, gripping her sketch portfolio like it might melt. Then she saw him. Not him, exactly. A matte black car with sleek lines and quiet power rolled to a stop at the curb. The passenger window lowered slowly. "You look like you're about to fight the sky," a voice said. Isla tilted her head. The man behind the wheel had an accent kissed by boarding school and billion-dollar boardrooms. His collar was open. No tie. Sleeves rolled just enough to show the ink along his forearm. His face, angular, unreadable, was familiar. Not from tabloids, from real estate articles, from headlines. Roman Kael. She laughed, mostly out of disbelief. "You picking up stray dogs now?" He arched an eyebrow. "Only the ones walking toward traffic." Big talk from someone parked illegally. "I own the building behind us." "Of course you do," she said, then hesitated. Her teeth were chattering now. "Can I get in, or are you just flirting with your window open?" The lock clicked. She climbed in. The car smelled like cedar and expensive silence. Isla tried not to drip on the leather seats, but her coat had given up. "Thank you," she muttered, shifting her bag off her lap. "Seriously, you're welcome," Roman said, pulling back into traffic with surgical smoothness. "Where to?" "Varnell Tower." His glance was quick. "You working there?" "Trying to." A beat passed. "Design?" She raised an eyebrow. "That obvious?" He smiled for the first time. It was quiet and sharp, like everything he did. No one walks into Varnell looking like war unless they're pitching something. Isla grinned. Color palettes, textures, spatial flow. "I'm dangerous." Clearly, they drove in relative silence. She noticed he didn't fill silences with nonsense. No small talk. No questions about her love life or favorite Starbucks order. It was refreshing. He dropped her at the front with zero theatrics. "No, can I get your number?" Or, "Let's do this again." He simply said, "Next time, bring an umbrella." Then, he was gone. And Ayla? She didn't expect a next time. She walked into Varnell Tower soaked but still landed the contract. A week later, she received a call from a blocked number. "This is Roman. I need someone to redesign a penthouse, something modest, warm. Lived in." Pause. "And you looked like you understood how to make something survive a storm." Roman Kael wasn't the man the internet painted. He was colder, but not in a cruel way. More in the way skyscraper windows kept their distance from the city below. He was watchful, focused, efficient. The kind of man who cut meetings short, not because he was rude, but because he saw no use in dragging out a no. He didn't smile often, but he listened hard. And when Isla walked him through mood boards and texture samples, he watched. Her like she wasn't just designing his space, she was disarming it. Their chemistry wasn't explosive. It was disciplined. Isla didn't flirt. Roman didn't chase. But their conversations got longer. Their meetings drifted into late dinners, then walks through unfinished properties, then dinners without blueprints. And somewhere between those long walks and sharp critiques, something broke loose. It wasn't romantic. It was quiet. Roman had taken her to the rooftop of a building he hadn't announced yet. The skyline was stitched in light. Wind whipped at their jackets. "I bought this block because my father grew up in a tenement 3 blocks down," he said, almost offhand. "Is this revenge or resurrection?" Isla asked. "Both." They didn't kiss. They just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, letting silence say more than words. By the 3rd month, it wasn't infatuation anymore. It was stability. Isla didn't beg for time. He gave it. Roman didn't flinch at her opinions. He respected them. She challenged him. He anchored her. They were opposites in tone but identical in rhythm. And then, with little warning, he proposed. It wasn't at a dinner or in front of cameras. They were walking through an empty event space she was redesigning for Kyle Arts. Roman pulled out a vintage sapphire ring. "It was my mother's, and if you say yes, I'll stop pretending I don't believe in forever." Isla froze, then whispered, "You just made me believe in it too." The press called it the union of steel and soul. Social media flooded with posts about Ayla, the normal girl who captured a titan's heart. Roman didn't respond to the noise. He never did. But behind closed doors, tension brewed. Isla noticed him working later, being quieter. He didn't talk about the wedding details. He just signed off on whatever she planned. And when she asked him why he seemed distracted, he finally gave her the answer that pulled the floor out from under their fairy tale. Roman sat at their breakfast bar, scrolling through emails. Isla poured herself coffee, trying to push through the fog in her chest. He didn't look up when he said it. "You'll need to accept my ex at the wedding, or I call it off." Isla blinked. "What did you just say?" Roman met her eyes, deadpan. "I'm not asking you to be friends with her. But I want her there." Front row, her hand tightened around the mug. "Roman." He cut her off with calm precision. "This isn't a debate, Ayla. It's a requirement. You want your ex-wife sitting at our wedding like she's a guest of honor?" Isla stood still, one hand resting on the kitchen counter, the other wrapped around a mug she no longer wanted to drink from. Her voice was low, steady, but underneath, everything trembled. Roman didn't flinch. He never did. "She's part of my life," he said. "She always will be." Isla stared at him, heart pounding so loud it was all she heard. "Why? Because she sat quietly when you ended things. Because she didn't burn your name in interviews. Because she stayed loyal," Roman answered, as if that explained everything. "She never once used my name to elevate hers. She didn't make a mess. That means something to me. And what do I mean to you, Roman?" He set down his tablet and finally looked at her. "You mean the future?" Isla shook her head. "Then why are you asking me to make space for your past?" There was a pause, a dangerous, heavy pause, one where neither of them knew who would bend first. Roman exhaled slowly. "Because the future isn't built on erasing people who mattered." Isla moved around the counter, slower than usual, like her body was unsure of itself. She sat down across from him. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Is there something between you and Celine I should know about?" "No," he said without hesitation. "Then why her? Why this request?" His gaze didn't soften. "Because I gave her my word, and I keep my word." Isla's throat went tight. "What word?" Roman leaned back in his chair. "When we signed the divorce, I told her that if I ever married again, I'd make sure she wasn't erased. Not just from my life, but from the space she helped build." She blinked hard. "You made her that promise?" "I did. And you're asking me to make good on it for you?" "I'm asking you to trust me," he said. "This isn't about love. It's about respect." "No," Isla said softly. "It's about control. You don't want a messy past. You want applause for how gracious you are, even if it costs me peace on my own wedding day." Roman's jaw tensed. "That's not fair." Isla stood. "Neither is this." She left the room. She didn't slam the door. She didn't raise her voice. But something inside her cracked open, and it wasn't going to close easily. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her thoughts ran wild. Celine's name looped like background noise, each syllable wrapped in Roman's voice. She didn't hate Celine. She didn't even know her. But what she knew was this: she didn't want to share the most vulnerable day of her life with someone who had once worn the same ring. especially not while the man giving her that ring was still honoring promises he made to someone else. At 2:37 a.m., she opened her laptop and Googled Celine Avner. The search results flooded her screen. Elegant photos, gala events, foundation launches. Her beauty was precise, flawless makeup, controlled smiles, polished speeches. Not a single scandal, not even gossip. But in every photo, Isla saw it. The absence. Celine didn't need to be in love. She needed to be admired. Roman had respected that. And maybe, in some way, he still did. Isla closed the laptop and laid back on the couch. She stared at the ceiling and whispered aloud, "I don't want to be her replacement." 2 days later, the email arrived. The subject line, "No press, no drama, just us. Dear Isla, if you're willing, I'd like to meet. No cameras, no audience, just woman to woman. Celine." Isla read it twice, then a third time. It wasn't what she expected. There was no edge, no fake kindness, no guilt trip. It was simple. She replied with one line, "Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Northview Cafe rooftop." Celine arrived exactly on time. She wore ivory, no makeup. Her hair was pulled back into a soft twist. No assistant, no driver waiting in the car. She carried herself like someone who didn't need to prove anything. Isla wore jeans, a wool coat, and no expression. She waited until Celine sat before speaking. "You said you wanted to talk." Celine nodded. "I did. Thank you for coming." Isla tilted her head slightly. "This isn't going to be about convincing me, is it?" "No," Celine said. "It's about explaining." A pause. "I didn't ask Roman to invite me," Celine continued. "He made me a promise years ago, one I never expected him to keep. Then why not just decline?" Isla asked. "Because declining would be pretending like I don't still exist in pieces of his world. And I do, whether either of us like it or not." Isla crossed her arms. "You still love him?" "No," Celine said. "I loved the version of him I thought I understood. But he was never mine. Not in the way you want someone to be when you marry them." "Then why were you silent for so long?" Celine smiled faintly. "Because I wasn't the victim. I was the lesson." Isla blinked. "I married him for the image, the alliance, the perfection. And when it fell apart, I didn't scream because, what was there to scream about? I got what I signed up for. But I left because he needed something I didn't know how to give. And now he found it in me," Isla said, more to herself than to Celine. Celine nodded. "Yes, and if I wanted him back, I would have never let him go. But I don't. I want peace. I want to know I didn't disappear without dignity." Isla's throat burned. "Do you know how hard it is to hear all this from the person who wore the dress first?" "Yes," Celine said. "That's why I'm here, to tell you that you're not her. And he's not the man I married." A long silence passed between them. Finally, Isla asked, "Why did you really stay connected to his family after the divorce?" Celine looked out toward the skyline. "Because they needed someone who didn't leave angry. His niece adores me. His mother calls me once a month. I don't show up to events. I don't insert myself. I've just remained. That's a hard act to follow." "You're not following me," Celine said. "You're stepping into something entirely different. Roman was a structure when I loved him. With you, he's trying to be a home." Isla didn't respond. She didn't know how to. When she got home, Roman was in his office, reading. He looked up when she entered, but didn't speak. "I met her," Isla said. He set the book down slowly, and she was calm, honest. "She didn't try to manipulate me." Roman nodded. Isla walked over and sat across from him. "She said you're not the man she married." His expression didn't change. "She's right," he said. Isla stared at him. "But you're still holding on to parts of that life." He opened his mouth, but she kept going. "You asked me to stand next to someone who once shared your name, someone who still moves through your family like a whisper, and you expected me to smile through it. She's part of the past, not the future." "No, Roman. You brought her into the future when you gave her that promise. She stood. He looked up at her. "I'm not walking away because of her," Isla said. "I'm stepping back because you made our wedding a performance, and I won't be part of a production." He stood as well. "Isla, no, you asked me to choose between honoring someone else's closure and my own dignity. I choose me." She walked out before he could say another word. The wedding was paused. There was no press release, no statement from the Kyle family, just silence. Roman didn't chase her. Not with flowers. Not with press stunts. He disappeared from the headlines completely. And Isla? She moved into a brownstone in Hyde Park. No cameras followed. No assistants came calling. Just her work, and the echo of the words she didn't want to believe she had to say. Isla hadn't heard from Roman in 21 days. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a carefully worded press leak designed to pull sympathy from the public. Just silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that asked for attention. It was the kind that said, "You've made your choice. I'm honoring it." And that was the hardest part. Isla had expected him to fight for her, or at least for the wedding. Roman Kyle didn't know how to lose. His empire was built on absorbing failure and flipping it into fortune. But now, he disappeared like it didn't hurt. That scared her more than anything. She woke every morning wondering if this was how it ended. A proposal, a disagreement, a withdrawal. The end of a love story written too fast. Hyde Park didn't care. Her new neighborhood didn't whisper about what she had lost. The brownstone apartment smelled like fresh paint and freedom. She walked to the grocery store in oversized hoodies and slippers. Her life slowed. No cameras, no statements, no diamonds on her finger. Just space, and space had a voice. It reminded her of who she was before Roman. A woman who built beauty out of raw drywall and empty rooms. A woman who didn't need money or power to walk into a room and be listened to. Before Roman, she didn't have a platform. But she had pride. She didn't cry when she moved out. She cried 2 nights later when she couldn't remember how she liked her eggs. He always ordered for her. Her phone rang once that week. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Hello? Miss Mirren?" "Yes. I'm calling from Kyle Properties. Mr. Kale's office asked that we ship your portfolio and sketchboards back to you. Where should we—" She hung up. Her breath shook in her chest, but she didn't let it out until she was sure the call had ended. He was clearing the decks. Not just emotionally, physically. She felt it like a punch to the chest. She waited 2 hours before emailing Niall, Roman's assistant. "Please, don't send anything. I'll come get it myself," Niall replied instantly. "Understood. I'll leave them in the downstairs conference room. No one will be there." That was the part that hurt. No one will be there. She went that Friday. The building still had her name in the visitor log. The lobby guard didn't even blink when she walked in. The woman at the front desk gave her a soft, sad smile. "First floor," she said. "Room C." Room C had been where she presented her first mock-up to Roman. The one with the layered textures and soft amber lighting that made his minimalist penthouse feel like someone lived there. Now it was just an empty glass room with her old sketches packed in a single box, neatly arranged, labeled by project. He didn't throw them out. He archived them. That alone brought tears she wasn't expecting. She sat on the floor beside the box and pulled out a sketch of the Varnell Tower penthouse, the one that led to everything, the one she showed him when she was still half shivering in that car, soaked to the bone, heart wide open. She slid her fingers along the pencil lines, smudged slightly from use. Then, under the final sheet, she found something unexpected. A journal, hardcover, charcoal grey, no name, no logo. A white post-it note stuck to the front, Ayla. "Yours, if you want it." Ah, her heart skipped. She looked around. No cameras, no one watching. She opened the journal. The first page was dated 3 weeks ago, right after the fight. "I've built towers, cities, contracts, but I still don't know how to build an apology that doesn't sound like a defense. You weren't wrong to leave. You were brave." The second page was harder. I spent most of my life with people who were too afraid to leave. That's how I learned to believe I was always right. You were the first one who didn't flinch when I drew a line in the sand. You crossed it and told me the truth. And the truth? I asked you to take Celine because I didn't know how to ask you to help me bury my guilt. I wasn't protecting her. I was protecting the part of me that never healed from that failure. By page 5, her hands were shaking. He had filled half the journal already. Pages of reflections, memories of their early dates, letters he never sent, the therapy sessions he finally attended, his fear of turning into the man his father had been, a man who demanded everything but gave nothing. Then came the line that broke her. You made me laugh again. You made my apartment smell like garlic and comfort and music I didn't even know I liked. You argued with me. You looked me in the eyes when I was silent. And you made silence feel safe. I never wanted to lose you. I just didn't know how to keep you without betraying a version of me that should have died years ago. She couldn't read anymore. She closed the journal and hugged it to her chest like it could hold her up. That night, Isla didn't sleep in her new bed. She laid on the couch with the journal beside her, reading page after page until sunrise. Roman hadn't ghosted her. He had gone inward. And in those pages, he bled honesty in a way he never could face to face. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was him. Saturday morning, she sat at her tiny kitchen table with a cup of black tea and her phone. Her fingers hovered over his name. No message came in. She didn't expect it to. Instead, she reached for the last page of the journal. The entry was written 2 days ago. I left your coffee mug in the cabinet. I can't bring myself to move it. I know you're strong enough to never come back. But if you do, I'll be waiting at the lake, where we first walked. She set the journal down slowly. Then she stood up. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't change into something more impressive. She just grabbed her keys and headed toward the place where their story had started to shift from strangers to something that almost looked like home. The lake wasn't crowded. It never was this early. She walked the same path they used to take after late work nights, where they'd eat greasy tacos and throw stones into the water just to hear something break the silence. He was there, alone, standing near the edge in a black coat, hands tucked into his pockets. When he saw her, he didn't move, didn't wave. He waited. She walked slowly, feeling the distance close not just in feet, but in fear. When she reached him, she stopped, close enough to touch, but she didn't. You wrote to me, she said. I should have spoken sooner, he replied. She nodded. But you didn't. I didn't know how, he said quietly. But now I do. She crossed her arms. Then say it. He looked her dead in the eye. I'm sorry I tried to protect my guilt instead of protecting you. I'm sorry I asked for your peace without offering mine. And I'm sorry I let my past decide the shape of our future. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She asked one question. Are you still asking me to take her? Roman shook his head. No. I'm not asking you to take anyone but me. Fully. With mistakes I still carry, but with hands finally open. Her eyes narrowed. No conditions. None. They stood there for a long time. Then Isla whispered, I'm not sure I trust you yet. Roman nodded. Then let me earn it, slowly, with less talk, more truth. Isla turned toward the water. They didn't touch, but she didn't leave. And for Roman Kyle, that was more hope than he thought he'd ever deserve. Roman didn't ask Ayla to move back in. He didn't bring up the wedding. He didn't mention rings, venues, or reconciliation. Instead, he asked for something else. Would you come with me? He said, standing outside her brownstone the next morning. No driver, no suit, just a man in a wool coat, hands in his pockets, eyes stripped of pride. Isla looked at him warily. Where? He glanced down, then back at her. Therapy. She blinked. Roman didn't repeat himself. Isla nodded once. Okay. His therapist's office was tucked in a quiet building not far from downtown. Roman had found her through Niall's wife, someone who swore by the woman. his ability to make powerful men stop pretending they weren't broken. Her name was Dr. Leanne Morel, early 60s, braids streaked with silver, sharp eyes that didn't blink when Roman sat down and tried to play it cool. "Roman," she said after 15 minutes of silence, "you're used to winning arguments. But this isn't a courtroom. I'm not here to argue," he replied. "Then talk. I don't know where to start." Isla sat beside him, not as a partner, but as someone watching a man decide if honesty was worth the risk. Roman finally spoke. "My father used to walk out every time my mother raised her voice. It was his way of saying she wasn't worth the fight." "Doctor." Morel waited. "I swore I'd never do that. But I became a man who never yelled and never listened." Isla looked at him. His hands were shaking. "I never knew how to sit in discomfort," Roman admitted. "So when Celine left quietly, I called that grace. And when Isla demanded clarity, I called that chaos." "Doctor." Morel nodded. "And what do you call it now?" Roman didn't speak for a long moment. Then he said, "Bravery." Isla reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. They went to therapy weekly. No press followed. No public statements were made. Roman didn't tell his board. Isla didn't post on social media. They just showed up. Some days were quiet. Others left Roman speechless, like the day he admitted he hadn't cried since he was 12. That day, he went home and sat on the floor of his penthouse alone. Isla left him space. When she came back the next morning, he was asleep on the carpet, tear stains on his shirt. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. 2 weeks later, he asked to see her mother. Isla hesitated. Her mother was protective, blunt, and had never hidden her distrust of Roman's billionaire sheen. They met at a cafe on the south side. Roman arrived early, dressed simply. No entourage, no security. Isla's mother, Marion, didn't smile when she sat. "You broke her," she said without preamble. Roman nodded. "I did. And now you want to what? Patch her up so you can feel better?" "No," he said. "I want to earn her trust back so I don't break her again." Marion looked him dead in the eyes. "Earning takes years. You got months at best." Roman nodded. "Then I'll start today." The following Sunday, he helped Ayla repaint her studio. He didn't know how to hold a brush correctly. He got paint in his hair. She laughed so hard her ribs hurt. That night, he cooked dinner from scratch. It was awful. She ate every bite. "You know I can't cook," he said, watching her fake a smile. "Then why do it?" He looked at her with soft eyes. "Because the last time I tried to give you something perfect, I almost lost you. I'd rather give you something real." She put her fork down and kissed his forehead. That was the first time they kissed again, not with urgency, with presence. 2 months passed. They didn't talk about the wedding. They didn't need to. One morning, Isla found a small envelope on her pillow. Inside was the original sapphire ring and a note. "This isn't a question, it's a symbol of what I'm building. Slowly, truthfully. With you." She slipped the ring on without a word. Roman walked into the room and saw her wearing it. He didn't cry, but his voice cracked when he said, "Thank you." That same week, Isla called someone she hadn't spoken to since the rooftop. "Celine." "I just wanted to say thank you," Isla said. "For what?" "For not fighting me, and for being honest when it would have been easier to play a part." Celine was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "He laughs differently with you. It's louder. I'm glad you made him loud." Isla smiled. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. 3 weeks later, Roman and Ayla hosted a small dinner with both sides of their families. No photographers, no press releases, just 20 chairs, one long table. Candles flickering between plates. Real conversation. Roman stood mid-meal and raised a glass. "I once thought love meant never failing, but Isla taught me it means failing differently, learning better, listening more." He turned to her. "And showing up, even after you've been humbled." Isla held his hand beneath the table. It didn't shake anymore. The next morning, Ayla opened her planner and drew a small heart on one of the spring dates. No venue booked, no dress chosen. But the date meant something. It meant readiness. If you believe love should never be rushed, and healing must come before forever, leave A in the comments. And if you've ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to find your voice again, tell us below. Someone in this community needs to hear your story. Spring hadn't quite arrived, but the air in Chicago had started to shift. The mornings felt less like punishment and more like possibility. Ayla woke to light filtering through her curtains, soft and golden, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she had to brace for the day. Roman had begun showing up differently, not loudly, not perfectly, but consistently. He asked about her designs, not just to be polite, but to understand. He started helping her grandmother with Sunday grocery runs, unannounced. He even learned how to properly roll paint without making it look like a toddler had gotten involved. But just when Ayla started to believe the past was done writing itself, a letter arrived that shook everything. It came in a cream envelope with no return address. It wasn't handwritten, typed, neat, intentional. She opened it slowly, eyes narrowing as she read the first line. He's not who you think he is. And neither was our ending. There was no signature, no name, just a warning. She read it again. Then a third time. Her first instinct wasn't fear, it was fury. She called Roman immediately. He answered on the second ring. Did you give my address to anyone? No. Why? I got a letter. Silence on the other end. What kind of letter? She read him the first line. He didn't respond. Roman, she said slowly, is there something else I should know? Still no answer. I need to see you. They met at his penthouse. It was late afternoon. The skyline behind him looked like something out of a storybook, glass towers touched by sunset. But Roman's face didn't match the view. He handed her a glass of water when she came in. Not wine, not coffee, water, something clean, something simple. Ayla didn't sit. She held the letter up. This isn't from Celine. I know, he said. She tilted her head. Then, who is it from? Roman walked to the window, back straight, hands in his pockets. I don't know. Don't lie. He turned. I'm not. But you have an idea. Yes. Ayla folded the paper. You're going to tell me. Roman ran a hand down his face. There was someone before Celine, before all of this. Before I was someone worth Googling. Ayla's chest tightened. And she was the only person who ever left me without warning. She didn't want money, didn't want a clean break. She vanished. Ayla waited. She's the reason I don't chase people, because when she disappeared, I chased her for 6 months and found nothing. You never mentioned her. I buried her. Ayla stepped closer. Roman, if she's sending things now, what changed? I don't know. Ayla pressed her lips together. Then we find out. The next morning, Roman reached out to Nael. Pull everything we have on letters sent to any Kyle Properties office. Cross-check against handwriting samples and known associates. Nael didn't ask questions. He never did. Ayla, meanwhile, scanned her inbox and mail for more clues. 2 days later, another envelope arrived. Same cream paper, same type. I saw the interview. You still wear the same lies like cufflinks. Roman read the line and flinched. Ayla leaned forward. Who is she, Roman? He hesitated. Her name was Leora. Ayla blinked. And what happened? Roman sat back, tired all at once. She wanted me before I had anything. I was rebuilding abandoned units in the South Side. She was an art teacher at the local public school. I used to work in the lot behind the school, fixing units with borrowed tools. Ayla listened in silence. She'd bring me sandwiches, lemon water. I didn't think I was worth her time, but she kept showing up. What ended it? She found out I'd been using investor money to help families stay in foreclosed properties longer than the law allowed. Ayla raised an eyebrow. It wasn't illegal, but it wasn't clean either. She hated it, said I was playing God. We argued. A week later, she was gone. No note, no goodbye, So you didn't end it. I would have fixed it if she let me. Isla sat back slowly. You've always been trying to fix things, haven't you? Even if they didn't break because of you. Roman nodded once. But not by apologizing, Isla said. By compensating. That one hit. They sat in silence for a long time. Isla finally asked, "What does she want now?" Roman didn't answer. Because the truth was, he didn't know. But Ayla did. She saw it clearly now. Leora didn't want to expose him. She wanted to remind him. That night, Ayla found a photo in Roman's storage drawer. An old Polaroid, slightly bent. A woman with wild curls, thick brows, and paint smudged on her cheek was laughing at something outside the frame. Leora. The caption read, "When you remember that art doesn't have to be approved to be real." Isla stared at it. Then she placed it back in the drawer and closed it gently. She didn't mention it again. She didn't need to. Days passed. No new letters came. But the mood had shifted again. Roman became more careful, less present. Like ghosts he thought were buried, had started whispering again. Isla didn't pull him out of it. She let him sit in it. Because healing meant letting the past breathe, even when it smelled like regret. They still went to therapy. They still shared quiet dinners. But now, a new layer existed between them. Truth that hadn't been told until it forced its way in. That weekend, Roman surprised her. "I want to go back," he said. "Where?" "To the school where she worked, the block where we started. I want to see what's still standing." Isla nodded once. Okay. They drove down to the south side. The school had been renovated into a learning center. The block where Roman used to work was now a sleek condo development, his development. He stood across the street from it, eyes unreadable. "I thought I was saving people back then," he said quietly. "But maybe I was saving myself." Isla took his hand. "You were building out of guilt." "No," she said, "out of memory. That's what most builders do." He looked at her. And for the first time since the letters arrived, he smiled. That night, Ayla wrote something of her own, not a letter, a journal entry about the ways people come back, not to ruin things, but to ask if we've really moved on. She didn't show it to Roman. She just folded it into her notebook and placed it on the shelf. The past didn't win, but it knocked. And this time, they didn't pretend not to hear it. They answered, together. Roman sat at the edge of his bed with a pen in his hand and a blank journal page staring back at him. He'd been here before. Hundreds of pages filled since Isla left the first time. Truths he hadn't known he was allowed to speak, written in ink he used to avoid. But this time, he wasn't writing for Isla, and he wasn't writing for closure. He was writing to himself, to the version of Roman Kyle who believed building an empire would somehow erase the guilt of who he once was. He began, "You wanted to be respected so badly you became a stranger to your own reflection. You called it ambition, but it was fear. Fear that if people really knew where you came from, they'd question where you were going. So you buried your softness in concrete. And now here you are, 34, and you don't need more buildings. You need healing." He paused, then added, "Leora didn't leave because she hated you. She left because she saw you lying to yourself and knew she couldn't stop it. Celine didn't leave because of scandal. She left because your silence starved her. Isla didn't leave because she didn't love you. She left because you asked her to stand in a room full of ghosts without asking if she was warm enough to survive the cold." The next morning, he made breakfast for Ayla. Pancakes. Too thick, too burned. She laughed as soon as she saw the smoke curling from the pan. "You've been watching YouTube tutorials again, haven't you?" Roman grinned. "I thought oil would help." It helped the smoke detector. He handed her a plate anyway. She took a bite, winced, and said, "For effort, 10 out of 10. He leaned against the counter, watching her. "I wrote last night," he said. She looked up. "For me." "For me." Isla set down her fork. "Do you want to share it?" Roman shrugged. "Not yet. But maybe soon." She nodded. "Good. They stood there in silence. But it was the good kind, the kind that didn't need to be filled, the kind that signaled growth, not distance. That afternoon, they walked to a used bookstore near the lake. Isla loved that place. The shelves tilted like they were tired, and the floorboards creaked like old secrets being remembered. Roman picked up a worn copy of Letters to a Young Poet and flipped to a random page. He read aloud. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses waiting only to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. Isla stopped walking. He looked up. Too dramatic. She shook her head. Too perfect. He bought the book. Later that week, Roman called Leora. The number didn't go through. Not because it was wrong, but because it was disconnected. He didn't try again. Instead, he wrote a final page in his journal. You were right. I wasn't ready to be someone else's anchor, but thank you for showing me I needed one. This chapter is closed. Isla found him sitting on the rooftop of the Kyle Arts building a few days later. It had rained, but the sky was clearing. She joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. She's gone quiet, Isla said softly. Roman nodded. Maybe that was all she needed. Isla looked at him. And what do you need? He didn't answer right away. Then he whispered, permission to be different than I was. You already are. Roman looked at her. How do you know? Because you didn't try to control this moment. You let it pass. That's new. He smiled, but it was small. Earned. Then maybe I'm getting better. You're getting real, she said. They began attending small community events again. Nothing big. Roman kept their appearances low-key. He didn't stand in front of cameras or make speeches. He listened. At one event, a young couple stopped them. Are you two back together? The woman asked, eyes wide with hope. Ayla looked at Roman. He waited for her to answer. She smiled gently. We're learning how to walk forward. No rush, no labels, just real time. The woman nodded. That's more romantic than anything I've seen on TV. Roman chuckled under his breath. Later that night, he told Ayla, you handle people better than I do. She raised an eyebrow. I just tell the truth. Exactly. One evening, Roman pulled out the sapphire ring again. Not to propose, just to hold it. They were sitting on the floor of her apartment, going through old photos for her upcoming gallery event. She'd been chosen to curate a full space for a mixed-use renovation project in Bronzeville, a milestone. I think I should reset the ring, he said quietly. Isla glanced at him. Why? He studied the stone. Not because it's wrong, but because we're different now. I want it to reflect who we are, not who we were pretending to be. She reached for it, turned it in her hand, then gave it back. I like that idea. He smiled. You'll help me pick the design? You know I will. At the redesign consultation, Isla guided the jeweler with clarity and care. She chose a setting that was soft at the edges, with a double band to represent strength and tenderness. The stone stayed the same. Roman watched her the whole time. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. He trusted her. The jeweler said it would be ready in 3 weeks. Roman didn't mark a date. He just waited. During those 3 weeks, he and Ayla spent most of their time with no audience. They visited her grandmother. They volunteered at an urban garden initiative Roman had quietly funded. They watched old movies on the couch without finishing them. And they made room. Not for more drama, for life. On the night the ring was ready, Roman picked it up alone. He didn't go to Ayla's apartment. He returned to the place he first saw her soaked and frustrated on a rain-drenched street corner, Michigan Avenue, outside the building he owned. And he waited. Ayla arrived 30 minutes later. Not because he asked her to, because she knew. He pulled the ring from his coat pocket and held it out, but not like a proposal. Just an offering. I don't need a yes, he said. I just need you to know I'd marry you tomorrow, next year, or never, as long as you stay real with me. Ayla took the ring, held it, then slipped it on. I'm not saying yes to the old version of us, she said. Good, Roman replied, because I buried him. They stood there, traffic blurring past them, hearts steadier than they'd been in months. No crowd, no cameras, just truth. And two people willing to rebuild, brick by brick, heart by heart. Isla had always believed she was the quiet one in her family, the steady one, the one who didn't make scenes or start fires just to see what would burn. But every family has its noise, and hers had a history of yelling over the calmest voices in the room. It started with a phone call, unknown number, mid-morning. She almost let it go to voicemail, but something told her to pick up. Isla. A voice said, female, older, familiar, in a way that made her stomach tighten. It's me, Naomi, your sister. Isla froze. Her grip on the phone tightened, her heart thudding against her ribs. The name she hadn't said aloud in over 3 years suddenly rang out like it had never left her mouth. What do you want? Naomi exhaled. To talk. You had 3 years to talk. I know. No, Naomi. You don't. Silence. I'm in Chicago, Naomi said finally. Just for the week. Can we meet? Isla wanted to hang up. Instead, she whispered, where? They met at a small cafe in Lincoln Square, neutral territory. Isla arrived early. She wore black. Not because she wanted to make a statement, but because it helped her feel less visible. Naomi showed up 5 minutes late. Same soft curls. Same too bright smile. Same way of tilting her head, like she could charm the truth out of anyone. But this time, Isla didn't move to hug her. She just stared. Naomi sat slowly, her eyes flickering with nerves. I look older, huh? She joked. Isla didn't respond. I thought about texting 100 times, Naomi continued, but I figured you'd block me. I should've, Isla said. Naomi swallowed hard. You're angry? No, Isla said flatly. I'm tired. Naomi looked down. Isla leaned forward. You want to explain, or should I guess? I didn't mean for it to happen. Isla raised an eyebrow. You didn't mean to steal a design file from my laptop and pitch it to a firm behind my back. Naomi winced. I was desperate. You were getting attention. I wasn't. I didn't think they'd go for it. They did, Isla snapped. And you took credit. You cashed in. You humiliated me. Naomi's voice cracked. I thought we'd share it. I didn't know they'd shut you out. Isla stared at her. You never returned my calls, never showed up to the panel we were supposed to host together. You let me get disqualified. You let me take the hit. Naomi wiped her eyes. I was scared. I knew I messed up, and I didn't know how to fix it. So you disappeared? Naomi nodded. Yeah. Isla leaned back. Her hands were trembling under the table, but she didn't let Naomi see it. You said you're here for a week, Isla said finally. What do you want now? I want to make things right. Isla narrowed her eyes. And what does right mean to you? I don't know, Naomi said. But I want to try. That night, Isla didn't tell Roman about the meeting. Not because she was hiding it, but because she didn't have the words yet. She sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how betrayal felt different when it came from family. It didn't just sting. It rewired how you defined safety. She had forgiven Roman for almost destroying their engagement with a single sentence. But Naomi had shattered years of trust with one stolen file. And somehow, it still hurt worse. The next day, Ayla walked through an open house with a new client, a couple in their 40s, ready to redesign a historic townhouse. As she talked about lighting, texture, and how space could tell a story, she felt something strange. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to impress. She was simply herself. It was a reminder that her career hadn't ended when Naomi burned that bridge. It had just rerouted. And that path, though quieter, had been entirely her own. Later that afternoon, Roman called her. Dinner at my mother's tomorrow, he said. She asked for you specifically. Isla froze. Why? Roman hesitated. She wants to talk about Celine. Isla's throat went dry. Should I be nervous? No, Roman said. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. They arrived at his mother's home just after 6. It was a restored brownstone tucked in a quieter part of the city, tasteful, understated, filled with sharp furniture and warmer energy. Margot Kyle was a woman who didn't speak unless she had something to say. Isla respected that. "Come in," Margot said, her voice calm but direct. "Let's skip the awkward pleasantries." Isla followed her into the dining room. Margot poured herself a glass of wine, then sat down. "I wanted to apologize," she said. Isla blinked. "For what? For making you feel like you were walking into someone else's life?" Isla said nothing. Margot continued. "Celine was a part of our family. She still is in some ways, but Roman never smiled with her the way he does with you. He never argued, never softened." Isla's voice was steady. "I'm not trying to erase her." "I know," Margot said. "And that's why I trust you." She stood. "One more thing," she added. "You made the right choice walking away when he gave you that ultimatum." Isla's eyes widened. Margot smiled faintly. "My son needed to learn that love isn't a prize you win with obedience. It's a garden you keep alive with patience. You taught him that." Isla felt something deep in her chest shift, a kind of permission she hadn't known she needed. That night, Roman drove her home. Neither of them spoke for a while. When he finally parked, she turned to him. "My sister's in town." Roman looked at her. "The one you stopped talking to?" She nodded. "We met yesterday." He didn't push. He just said, "How did it feel?" Like sitting next to a wound that never healed right. Roman reached across the console and took her hand. "Let me know if you want me there," he said softly. She looked at him, eyes softening. "Not yet," she replied. "But thank you." Inside her apartment, Isla stood at the window and stared out into the street. Chicago was alive with movement, cars, voices, wind pushing against spring like it didn't want to leave winter behind. She understood that feeling now. Sometimes, healing meant going backward before you could step forward. She didn't know what Naomi truly wanted, but she knew what she deserved, truth. And truth always came with a cost. She was finally ready to pay it. Naomi texted the next morning, "Can we meet again? I promise, no excuses, just truth." Isla stared at the message. No emoji, no fake warmth, just words. Clear, heavy. She debated ignoring it, letting Naomi leave Chicago without getting what she came for. But silence hadn't healed anything the last time. So she replied, 1 hour, same cafe. This time, Isla arrived right on time. Naomi was already seated, no makeup, hair pulled back, sweater sleeves rolled up like she was bracing for something. When Isla sat, Naomi didn't look up. She pushed a manila folder across the table. Isla raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" Naomi's voice cracked. "My apology." In paper, Isla opened the folder. Inside were email threads, screenshots, contract notices, all tied to the design Naomi stole 3 years ago. Except now, Naomi had redlined them. She'd added notes explaining what she'd edited, who she pitched to, and the payments she received. At the back, a check, one with Ayla's name on it. "I don't want your money," Isla said flatly. Naomi nodded. "Then tear it up, but it's yours. It always was." Isla closed the folder slowly. "I came back," Naomi said softly, "because the firm terminated my contract last month. Not because they found out, because I couldn't keep pretending I earned something I didn't." Isla looked away. "I came back," Naomi added, "because I've been trying to fix everything except the one thing that broke it all." Her voice was shaking now. "Us." Isla's eyes stayed on the window. "I loved you," Naomi whispered, "and I still betrayed you. Not because I hated you, because I hated how easy you made it look. The grace, the talent, the way people listened when you spoke. I wanted that, and I was too jealous to admit I already had what mattered. You." Tears welled in Isla's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I hated you," she said softly. "For so long." Naomi nodded. "I deserve that. I wanted to expose you, hurt you. I wanted you to feel what I felt when you watched me fall apart and said nothing. I know, Isla finally looked at her. You made me question everything. My worth, my work, my voice. Naomi didn't flinch. I want to forgive you, Isla said. But I don't know how. You don't have to, Naomi whispered. Just start by believing me when I say I know I was wrong. Isla took a long breath. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel angry. She just felt tired. That night, she told Roman everything. From the first betrayal to the pain of seeing Naomi again. He sat quietly on her couch, not interrupting once. When she finished, he simply said, "You did the hard part." "What part?" "You let her speak." Isla leaned her head on his shoulder. "I don't know if I can forgive her." "You don't have to today." She closed her eyes. "Did you forgive your father?" Roman paused. "No," he said quietly. "But I forgave the boy who needed him to be better." Isla looked up. "Forgiveness doesn't mean letting them off the hook," he added. "It means letting yourself off the hook for carrying something that wasn't yours." Isla went still. "Letting go of her doesn't mean she wins," Roman said. "It means she doesn't get to keep living in your chest." The next day, Isla went back to therapy. She hadn't been in a few weeks, not since she and Roman started rebuilding. But now, the weight of her sister's return needed its own room. Her therapist, Dr. Rivera, listened carefully as Isla retold the story. At the end, she asked, "What's the fear if you let Naomi in again?" Isla answered without hesitation, "That she'll do it again, and what's the fear if you don't?" Isla blinked. "That I'll stay angry forever." Dr. Rivera nodded. "And which fear feels heavier?" Isla's voice cracked. "Staying angry." 3 days later, Isla met Naomi one last time. This time, no folder, no money, no tears. Just 2 women standing in front of a park bench that used to be their favorite growing up. Isla sat first. Naomi joined her. "I'm not giving you a clean slate," Isla said. "But I'm choosing to stop bleeding from an old cut." Naomi nodded. "That's more than I deserve." Isla looked at her, really looked. "You're not the girl who took from me anymore. But I'm not the girl who let people walk over me either." Naomi smiled weakly. "Thank God for that." Isla exhaled slowly. "Take care of yourself. You too." They stood. No hugs, no promises, just distance that no longer had to be bridged with pain. That weekend, Isla and Roman hosted a dinner with a few close friends and clients. Nothing formal, just music, laughter, and plates of food no one had to pretend to love. Near the end of the night, Isla pulled Roman aside. "I've been thinking," she said. "Dangerous," he teased. "I want to restart the wedding planning." He blinked. "You sure?" "Yes. But this time, no pressure, no press, no past haunting the seating chart." He smiled. "So, you'll marry me?" "I'll marry the man you are now," she said. "Not the one who thought love was conditional." Roman stepped closer. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving I know the difference." She kissed him. This time, no hesitation, just truth and hope. The invitation wasn't sent to her, it was forwarded. Celine received it from Roman's mother, not because she asked, but because Margot believed in dignity, even when the world didn't ask her to. Isla and Roman had decided on a quiet wedding. No tabloids, no red carpet, no brand sponsors pretending to support love while cashing in on clicks. The invite was printed on thick ivory cardstock, the names embossed in soft gold. It didn't scream wealth, it whispered peace. Celine read the words slowly. "Roman Kyle and Isla Mirren. Request your presence." She let the card sit in her lap for a long time. Then she folded it back into the envelope and placed it on her windowsill. She wasn't angry. She wasn't heartbroken. But something inside her needed closure. So she picked up her phone and typed, "Hi, Isla. Would you be open to one more conversation? No drama, no tension. Just 2 women making sure no weight gets carried into your new chapter." She didn't expect a reply. But 15 minutes later, Isla wrote back, "Tomorrow, 11 a.m. the same rooftop. The cafe hadn't changed. Same rooftop view of the skyline. Same quiet hum of the city below. But Ayla had changed. Celine saw it the moment she arrived. She walked taller now. Not like someone proving anything, but like someone who no longer needed to. Ayla didn't wait for pleasantries. "You look peaceful," she said. Celine smiled. "So do you." They sat. Celine sipped water, then said, "I didn't come to ask for a seat. I didn't think you did. I came because I wanted to tell you something I never told Roman." Ayla raised an eyebrow. Celine continued, "The day I left him, I didn't leave because he failed me. I left because I finally admitted I couldn't love him the way he needed. He wanted someone who made space. I only made plans." Ayla listened. "He was always trying to be enough. I was always trying to be more. We exhausted each other." A pause. "But you made him still." Ayla blinked. "That man never sat still a day in our marriage," Celine said. "But when I saw him with you, even in photos, I saw a man who no longer ran from himself." Ayla felt a strange ache. Not pity, not guilt, something softer. Something like understanding. "I didn't steal him from you," Ayla said quietly. "No," Celine replied. "You freed him." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Celine pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to throw this away. Then I thought maybe it wasn't mine to bury." She slid the box across the table. Ayla opened it. Inside, a pair of vintage sapphire earrings. Small, elegant, matching the ring Roman had given her. "They were a gift from his mother after our engagement," Celine explained. "But I never wore them. I always felt like they didn't belong on someone trying to fit into a life they didn't earn." Ayla ran her finger over the velvet. "I want you to have them," Celine said. "Not because you need them, but because they were meant to sit beside that ring." Ayla looked up. "I can't promise I'll wear them," she said. "You don't have to," Celine replied. "But I needed to hand them to someone who could carry their meaning, and you already are." They left the cafe without a hug, just a nod. And in that nod, the past exhaled. Later that afternoon, Ayla returned home and placed the earrings on her dresser. She didn't try them on. Instead, she called Roman. "You free?" "Always. I want to tell you something. Come by." On my way, Roman arrived 20 minutes later. He kissed her before asking anything, then sat on the floor like he always did when he wanted to listen. Ayla told him everything about the meeting. He stayed quiet. When she finished, she pulled out the box and handed it to him. She said they were meant to go with the ring. Roman opened it slowly, then closed it again. "I remember buying these," he said. "She picked them, but they didn't suit her. I just thought I made the wrong choice." "You didn't." He looked at her. "She wasn't the wrong choice," Ayla added. "She was the right lesson." Roman swallowed. "I want us to walk into this marriage without ghosts," Ayla said. "And today, I buried one of mine." He reached for her hand. "Then let's bury the rest." That night, Ayla found herself sitting at her desk with the earrings in front of her. She didn't feel haunted. She felt light. Not because the past didn't hurt anymore, but because she'd stopped letting it sit at her table every night. She placed the earrings beside the ring box, then whispered to herself, "We're almost there." Meanwhile, Roman sat alone in his office. He didn't journal that night. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to Celine. "Thank you for everything." No reply came. He didn't need one. Some gratitude didn't require acknowledgement. It just needed release. The closer the wedding got, the quieter Roman became. Not in a cold way, in a careful one. He double-checked vendor quotes, reviewed guest confirmations, coordinated schedules with Ayla's mother, then hers again. He was doing everything right, on paper. But Ayla felt the distance. It started in small ways. He didn't ask for her opinion on the wine list. He declined a cake tasting and said, "Choose what you like." He skipped their final venue walkthrough, citing a last-minute board call. Ayla told herself it was normal, that men often detach during wedding planning, that he wasn't hiding. until the night he missed their dress-fitting appointment completely and didn't call. That's when it changed. She waited for him in the studio, alone in a champagne silk slip dress, one hand resting on the seam of the fabric while the other clenched her phone. She called once, no answer. She called again, voicemail. By the time she took off the dress, she was numb. Not angry, not emotional, just hollow. He came home after 10. She was seated at the kitchen island, dinner untouched. Roman froze when he saw her. "I'm sorry. Don't say it." He shut the door quietly. "I got caught up on a call with the Shanghai partners. It ran long." "No, Roman. That's not why I'm upset." He walked toward her. "Then tell me." She looked up. "You're disappearing again, quietly, casually. Like if you shrink yourself small enough, I won't notice." His mouth opened, closed. "I told you," she continued, "this can't feel like a negotiation." "It's not. Then why does it feel like I'm marrying a man who's already halfway out the door?" Roman pulled out a chair but didn't sit. He looked tired. "I'm scared," he said. Isla blinked. "Not of marrying you," he clarified. "Of failing again. Of putting everything we've rebuilt into a day that people will measure by how perfect it looks." She stared at him. "You're afraid of the wedding?" "No. I'm afraid of what it will ask me to prove. That I've changed. That I'm worthy of your yes." Her face softened. "Roman." "You already are." He ran a hand through his hair. "When I missed the dress appointment," he said, "I was on a call. But the truth is, I could have ended it early. I didn't. I froze. I thought, what if I see her in that dress and realize I'm not the man she thinks I am?" Isla stood, walked over, took his hand. "I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be present." His shoulders dropped. "And if you ever feel yourself slipping again," she added, "say something. Don't disappear." "I won't." She stepped closer. "I can't marry a ghost, Roman. I need a man who's awake." "I'm here." "Then stay." They sat in silence for a while. This time, it wasn't heavy. It was healing. The next morning, Roman showed up at her apartment with 2 coffees, a notebook, and a list. "Venue walkthrough is at 10. I already rescheduled. We'll choose the wine together. And I booked a second dress fitting for tomorrow." She smiled. "Someone's trying to earn back points." He grinned. "I'm trying to stay awake." At the venue, they walked the aisle slowly. It was outdoors, surrounded by tall trees, soft lanterns, and the sound of wind weaving through the leaves. Isla stopped halfway and turned to him. "Do you still feel afraid?" "Yes." "Good," she said. "So do I." They stood there for a while, just listening to the quiet. Roman slipped his fingers between hers. "We're not failing," he said. "No," Isla replied. "We're learning how to hold the good stuff with both hands." Later that day, Isla received a small envelope at her studio. Inside, a note in Roman's handwriting. "I'll forget to do things. I'll mess up dates. I'll miss cues. But I will never forget how to choose you." She pressed the paper to her chest. She didn't need big declarations. She needed this. The quiet, constant reminders that love wasn't a performance. It was a decision, made daily. That night, they didn't talk about centerpieces or music. They talked about the kind of people they wanted to be 5 years from now. Isla said she wanted peace that didn't depend on silence. Roman said he wanted a home that didn't feel like a museum. They agreed on 2 things, more art on the walls, and never skipping therapy, even on good days. 3 days before the wedding, the house was full. Not the penthouse, the house. Isla's brownstone had become the headquarters for final preparations, last-minute fittings, and a surprising amount of laughter for 2 people who used to walk on emotional glass. Roman hadn't seen his family all together like this in years. His mother, Margot, had arrived with an entire binder labeled contingencies. His niece, Harper, had already nominated herself as flower girl manager, despite being only 6. And Ayla's grandmother, Joan, had flown in from the south with a suitcase full of spices and one very firm demand: "Nobody eats a dry wedding cake on my watch." The morning began with pancakes, real ones, not Roman's. Joan had taken over the kitchen before sunrise, humming old gospel songs as she cooked. Isla sat at the table in her robe, sipping tea, hair pinned in rollers. Roman walked in, paused, then smiled. "Something smells like forgiveness." Joan turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "Boy, you show up quiet one more time and I'll assume you're sneaking out." Isla laughed into her cup. Roman raised his hands. "Just trying not to disturb the Queen." "You're marrying the Queen." "I'm just her backup," Joan said, flipping another pancake. After breakfast, Harper pulled Roman aside with all the seriousness of a board meeting. "I wrote a speech," she whispered. He knelt down. "For what?" "For the wedding, you know. Like the movies. Want to read it to me?" She nodded. A crumpled piece of paper emerged from her unicorn purse. Roman listened as she read each line, voice full of dramatic pauses and soft mispronunciations. When she finished, she asked, "Do you think Isla will cry?" Roman smiled. "She might. But the good kind." Harper beamed. Later that afternoon, Isla's mother arrived. She hadn't always approved of Roman. He knew that, but something in her softened when she saw him helping Joan carry groceries. Up the stairs, not once looking for an assistant or excuse. "Hi," she said. Roman nodded. "Mrs. Mirren, I see you're still here, and I plan on staying." She looked him over, then gave a single nod. "Then we don't have a problem." Upstairs, Isla was packing her overnight bag for the pre-wedding stay at a local inn. She and Roman had agreed to spend the night before apart, not out of superstition, but to give the day weight. She folded a silk scarf, then paused. In the side pocket of her bag sat the earrings. Celine's. She hadn't decided whether to wear them yet. They weren't about style, they were about peace. And Isla wasn't sure if she was ready to carry that kind of symbol down the aisle. She left them in the bag. For now. That evening, a small backyard dinner took shape under string lights and quiet jazz from a Bluetooth speaker that refused to stay connected. The table was mismatched. The chairs creaked. The candles burned unevenly. But everything felt right. Joan stood and tapped her glass with a spoon. "I got something to say." All eyes turned. She looked at Roman. "You could have run. You could have made this hard. But instead, you showed up, again and again." Until showing up stopped being the exception. Then, to Isla, you loved loud, and when it hurt, you loved quiet. And when quiet didn't work, you walked away. That's strength. Then, to both of them, you two didn't find each other. You chose each other. Even after the mess, she raised her glass, to the kind of love that doesn't perform. It just shows up. Everyone drank. Roman kissed Isla's cheek, and she didn't blush. She breathed. That night, after everyone left, Isla stood at the mirror in the guest room of the inn, staring at her reflection. Hair braided loosely, face bare, heart full. She reached into her bag and pulled out the earrings, held them in her palm, closed her eyes, then put them on. Across town, Roman sat in the dark of his living room, watching the skyline. Nael had left hours ago after dropping off the final itinerary. Everything was done. Everything was ready. And for the first time, Roman felt no fear, just stillness. Not the kind that comes before something breaks, the kind that lets you rest. The wedding morning didn't start with chaos. No misplaced bouquets, no makeup emergencies, no lost rings. It started with light, warm golden light pouring through the windows of Isla's room at the inn. She woke slowly, no alarm, just a quiet awareness that today wasn't like the others. She sat up, took a breath, and whispered to herself, "Let it be honest. No fantasy, no performance, just truth." She looked over at the white garment bag hanging by the door, then reached for her tea. Already set by Joan, who had woken early and then tiptoed back out without a word. Isla stood, walked to the window, and watched as a small bird landed on the ledge, then flew off. Even the sky wasn't rushing. Across town, Roman was already dressed, not in his tux, just in slacks and a soft grey sweater, the sleeves pushed to his elbows. He stood in front of a mirror, tying his cufflinks. They weren't gold. They weren't diamond. They were wood, hand-carved, a gift from Isla's grandmother. "Humility suits you," Joan had said when she gave them to him. He finally believed her. At 9:45, Niall arrived. He didn't knock. He opened the door, peeked in, and said, "Still breathing?" Roman smirked. "Barely." Niall walked in, carrying a box. "What's that?" "From Isla." Roman opened it. Inside, a folded note, a pair of socks with tiny lemons printed on them, and a single photo, one of the first they ever took together. The note read, "You brought me lemon water that first week. You didn't know I hated lemons, but I drank it anyway, because it felt like care. I'm ready to choose that kind of love for life." Roman held the paper to his chest. "I've been a lot of things," he whispered, "but no one's ever written me a love story like this." Back at the inn, Ayla sat in the makeup chair. Soft blush, natural lashes, gloss, not lipstick, no veil. She didn't want to hide. Her dress was simple, fitted silk, buttons down the back, a neckline that said elegance without needing approval. When she stepped into it, the room went quiet. Her mother cried. Joan didn't. She just nodded. "You look like truth," and Ayla smiled, because that's exactly how she felt. At the venue, the guests took their seats slowly. Family, close friends, a few colleagues who didn't just know their resumes, but their hearts. The aisle was lined with wildflowers. The air smelled like clean beginnings. Roman stood at the front, hands clasped behind him, breathing through his nerves. Not because he was unsure, but because this time he understood what the weight of a vow truly meant. The music began. Not traditional, a soft instrumental version of an old jazz tune they both loved. Then Isla appeared. She didn't float. She walked, like a woman who'd rebuilt her home and was ready to open the door again. Roman's eyes found hers. He didn't cry, but his throat burned. Isla reached him and didn't wait for anyone to prompt her. She took his hand. He whispered, "You're more than I prayed for." She whispered back, "You're more than I believed I could forgive." The officiant began. There were no readings, no borrowed poetry, just their vows. Roman spoke first. "I grew up believing silence was strength, that showing emotion was weakness, that love was about protection, not connection. But you cracked that open. You made space for my real voice, and even when I failed you, you didn't become smaller, you became clearer. I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to match that clarity. I want to be your partner, fully. Not because I earned you, but because I'm willing to grow with you every day." Isla's voice didn't waver. "I didn't walk into your life to complete you. I walked in to meet you, fully. And when you made it hard, I chose me. That was my vow to myself. And today I make a new vow, not to stay if it gets hard, but to stay with you. Not to lose myself, but to keep becoming beside you. You gave me honesty. I give you peace." The crowd was still. "Somewhere," Joan muttered. "That's how it's done." When the officiant said, "You may kiss," they did. No dip, no performance. Just two people who had already chosen each other long before this day. And now, the rest of the world had caught up. As the guests cheered, Roman whispered in Isla's ear, "I want to go home. Now." "Yes." "Why?" He smiled. "Because this was the ceremony. I'm ready for the marriage." That evening, they didn't go to a reception hall. They went home, still in their wedding clothes. Joan had made enough food to feed a village. They sat on the living room floor, barefoot, plates in their laps, laughing as Roman spilled sauce on his sleeve. "This feels unreal," he said. "It's real," Isla replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "That's what makes it so rare." He looked down at her hand. No makeup, no edits. Just a ring on her finger and a piece he'd never imagined he could be part of. "I'm yours," he whispered. She didn't say it back. She didn't need to. He already knew. If you believe marriage should start with honesty, not perfection, leave A in the comments and tell us, What's one lesson about love you've learned that changed how you show up in relationships? Your story might help someone else find clarity. 2 weeks after the wedding, Isla stood barefoot in the kitchen, staring at a box of herbal tea she suddenly couldn't stand the smell of. She placed it on the counter, then walked away. The morning had started normally. Roman had left early for a site tour. She had stayed back to review new design sketches for a boutique hotel project. Everything was fine, until the wave of nausea hit. It came fast, full, uninvited. And it wasn't the first time. For the last 5 days, her body had been whispering clues. But this morning, it shouted. She sat on the bathroom floor, forehead resting on her knees, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't name yet. She knew what it could be. But she didn't want to assume. Not without proof. Not without a breath. So she waited. And when the quiet came back, she reached for her phone and called Joan. Joan answered on the second ring. You breathing heavy or pacing? Both. Where's Roman? On site. Good. Go to the pharmacy. Get 3 tests. Not 1, not 2, 3. Because peace of mind don't live in maybe. An hour later, Ayla sat on her bed. 3 white sticks lined up like a parade on the nightstand. All 3 said the same thing. Positive. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just stared at them and whispered, "What now?" When Roman came home, she was sitting on the floor again, knees pulled to her chest, chin resting on top. He dropped his bag immediately. Ayla. She looked up. Calm, but not quite steady. I need to tell you something. He crossed the room in 2 steps. What happened? She pointed to the nightstand. Roman followed her hand. 3 tests. Lined up. All clear. His breath caught. He looked back at her. Are you sure? She nodded. I double-checked the instructions. Triple-checked. He knelt down slowly. How do you feel? Shaken. Quiet. Not scared. Just overwhelmed. Roman looked at the tests again. Then he did something she didn't expect. He sat beside her. Didn't say anything. Didn't rush the moment. Just sat with her in the thick of it. After a minute he said, I don't know how to do this. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Neither do I. But I know we'll figure it out. Ayla closed her eyes. And for the first time that day, she smiled. That night, they sat on the couch in silence. Roman held the test box in his hand, studying the tiny illustrations like it held the answers to parenthood. This feels fast, he said. It is, but it doesn't feel wrong. No. He set the box down. Do you want this? Ayla turned to him. Do you? He took her hand. I didn't know I did. Until I saw those lines, her chest tightened. But if you're not ready, he added, we'll figure that out too. She leaned into him. I think I want it. I think I want all of it. The mess. The late nights. The part where you fall in love with something before it even has a name. Roman closed his eyes. You're going to be incredible, he said. Scared, she replied. But yes, me too. The next morning, Ayla woke to the smell of toast and softly burnt eggs. Roman stood in the kitchen, proudly ruining breakfast. This is a safe space, he said as she walked in. No judgment. Ayla laughed. None. But maybe less pepper next time. He handed her a plate. One day I'll master this. One day you'll teach our child how not to. He froze, then grinned. God, I love how that sounds. She kissed his cheek. Me too. Later that week, they went to the doctor, confirmed the news, saw a heartbeat on a screen. Roman didn't speak for the rest of the day. He just held her hand like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. And in a way, it was. They didn't tell anyone right away, not even Joan. They kept the news between them, tucked into shared glances and soft morning touches. It became their secret joy, their quiet hum beneath conversations, until one evening, while watching an old movie on the couch, Roman turned to her and said, I want to tell them. Ayla nodded. I want to watch their faces change, he added. Like mine did. She smiled. Okay, that Sunday, they invited the family over for dinner. Joan arrived first, as always, bringing cornbread and questions. Margot followed, holding Harper's hand, the child already twirling in anticipation of dessert. Isla set the table. Roman poured wine, except for her glass. Just water. Joan noticed first. Something you're not saying? Isla and Roman exchanged a glance. Then he nodded. She cleared her throat. We're expecting silence. Then Joan stood, walked to Isla, and said, "Took you long enough." Isla laughed through her tears. Margot smiled quietly, then walked over to Roman and hugged him without words. Harper, confused, whispered, "Expecting what?" Roman bent down. "You're getting a cousin." Her eyes went wide. "Like a baby?" He nodded. She screamed, "Best dinner ever." That night, after everyone left, Isla curled into Roman's side and whispered, "Still feel fast?" "No," he said. "Now it feels like the start." She rested her hand on her stomach. Not flat anymore, not yet round, but holding something real, something new, something theirs. Pregnancy didn't wait for comfort. By week 7, Isla was exhausted before noon and wide awake by 3 a.m. Food tasted different. Music made her cry. A perfume sample on a magazine page made her vomit. But what surprised her most wasn't the physical changes. It was how it shifted everything else. Work, rest, the way she saw herself, the way she saw Roman. He'd become overly careful, not annoying, not condescending, just watchful. He started checking the temperature of her tea twice. He added a cushion to her desk chair when she didn't ask. He'd hold her waist even walking from the bedroom to the kitchen. Isla noticed it all, and part of her appreciated it, but another part of her felt watched. One morning, she finally said it. "I know you mean well, but I don't want to feel like glass." Roman looked up from where he was folding a blanket. "I'm just trying to help." "I know," she said gently, "but I'm still me, not a project." He sat down. "I guess I don't know how to support you without trying to fix everything." She reached for his hand, then asked, "Let me tell you what I need." "Okay." He nodded. "What do you need?" She smiled. "Someone who listens when I say I'm fine, and believes me the second time I say it louder." Roman nodded slowly. "Got it." They kissed without tension, and that was enough. At work, Isla's team noticed the change before she told them. She took more breaks, laughed softer, and once walked out of a meeting when the smell of someone's lunch turned the room into a war zone. She told them at a Monday stand-up. "I'm expecting," she said plainly. Her assistant gasped. The others clapped. She added, "It's early, but I wanted you to hear it from me." They asked thoughtful questions, then got back to work. That's how Isla liked it. Quiet joy, no spectacle. Roman, however, faced something different. His board didn't care about joy. They cared about projections, margins, performance. When he told them the news in a meeting, more as an update than an announcement, the room went still. One partner asked, "So will you be stepping back during paternity?" Roman nodded. Briefly. "A few weeks, maybe." Another executive leaned forward. "Should we begin transitioning interim responsibilities to Niall?" Roman hesitated. Niall was capable. More than. But the question wasn't really about support. It was about power, control, presence. Roman smiled tightly. "Let's table that for now. We're still in the early stages." The meeting moved on, but something in him stayed behind. That evening, he came home quiet. Isla was on the couch, flipping through a baby name book, one hand on her stomach. "You okay?" she asked. He kissed the top of her head. "Just tired." But she saw it. The shadow, the retreat. She waited. 3 days passed before he admitted it. They were having dinner, nothing fancy. Just takeout and soft jazz. Roman set down his fork. "I'm afraid I won't be good at this." Isla looked up. "Fatherhood?" He nodded. "Or knowing how to hold both things, us and the company, without letting one slip. She leaned in. Then don't hold them both alone. Roman swallowed. I watched my dad try to juggle everything. He always picked work. And when he didn't, he came home too tired to give anyone his real self. You're not your father. I'm scared I might echo him anyway. She reached for his hand. If you start to slip, I'll say something. Loudly. Like your niece with cake. Roman laughed. Then went still. What if I mess this up? You will. He blinked. You'll mess things up, Ayla repeated. So will I. But we'll clean it up together. That's what makes this different. Roman exhaled. I want this baby to grow up, knowing softness isn't weakness. Then show them that by being honest when you're scared. Like now. Exactly like now. That night, Roman wrote in his journal again. Not pages. Just a single line. Fear doesn't mean I'm failing, it means I care. They booked a prenatal class for couples. It was awkward and too long and filled with laminated handouts. But they held hands the entire time. Roman asked every question Ayla was too tired to say aloud. Ayla laughed at every face he made during the diaper demo. It wasn't cute. It was real. And, for once, Roman didn't need to perfect anything. He was already enough. One Sunday, they stayed in bed all day. Ayla's head on his chest, his hand tracing soft circles along her back. No words, just peace. And at one point, Ayla whispered, "What if we're having twins?" Roman choked on air. "Twins?" She laughed. "I'm kidding." He looked horrified, then smiled. "Okay, but if we do, dibs on naming one? What would you name a child?" He thought for a beat. Nova. If it's a girl, because it means new. Like how this all feels. Ayla blinked. "Okay," she said softly. "Nova it is." The waiting room smelled like mint and nerves. Ayla sat flipping through an old home decor magazine, pretending to read while Roman paced quietly near the windows. He tried not to show it, but his fingers tapped against his phone like they had somewhere else to be. They didn't. Today was the 12-week scan. A routine ultrasound, but it didn't feel routine. It felt like something was about to shift. When the nurse called her name, Ayla stood up slowly. Roman walked beside her, one hand on her lower back, another tucked into his jacket pocket. He didn't say much, but his silence was full of anticipation. Inside, the technician greeted them with a calm smile. "Let's get you comfortable," she said. Ayla lay back. Roman pulled the stool closer, and the screen flickered to life. The wand moved. The gel chilled her skin. And then, the room filled with the rapid, unmistakable sound of a heartbeat. Ayla smiled. Roman exhaled. Then the technician paused. Ayla's eyes darted to Roman's. "What?" he asked. The tech tilted the screen slightly. "You said this was your first ultrasound." "Yes," Ayla nodded. Aside from the confirmation, the woman zoomed in, then smiled. "Well, I hope you're ready for a surprise." Roman straightened in his seat. Ayla braced. The screen split into two. Two heartbeats. Two tiny flickering shapes. The tech turned to them and said, "You're having twins." The room went silent. Ayla blinked slowly. Her breath caught. Roman stood up, then sat right back down. "Twins?" Ayla repeated, her voice barely audible. The technician laughed gently. "Yes, two, both healthy, both measuring on track." Roman rubbed his hand across his face. "Wow." Ayla looked at him, her eyes wide. "I was joking about twins last week." He laughed, half stunned, half serious. "You manifested chaos." The tech printed the sonogram photos. "I'll give you two a moment." Once they were alone, Ayla reached for Roman's hand. "Are you okay?" He looked dazed. "I think my brain left the building." Ayla leaned into him. "I don't know whether to laugh or cry." He kissed her forehead. "Do both. You've earned it." And she did. Tears came first, then laughter, then both at the same time. On the ride home, they said nothing for half the trip. Then Roman broke the silence. I can't stop seeing the screen. Same, Isla replied. It's burned in my mind, too. That's a lot of diapers, and car seats, and bottles, and noise. He reached for her hand. And love. She squeezed his fingers. Yeah. That too. That night, they sat on the floor of the nursery they hadn't started yet. Blank walls, empty corners. But now, everything had to double. 2 cribs, 2 names, 2 lives they didn't see coming. I don't want to be the kind of parents who are too tired to enjoy any of it, Isla said. Roman nodded. Then we ask for help when we need it. No pretending. Promise. Promise. They called Joan first. She screamed loud enough to rattle the windows. You better start freezing meals now, she said. Then Margot, who said, looks like the universe trusts you more than you trust yourselves. Then Isla's old college roommate, who just whispered, girl. Twins? Every reaction added weight, not in a bad way, but in a way that made it real. Roman found himself watching videos on twin sleep schedules. Isla started organizing her week by energy level, not task list. They weren't just expecting anymore. They were preparing. One afternoon, Isla sat by the window sketching. Roman walked in, paused. You've been quiet all day. She set her sketch pad down. I'm scared. Of what? Of being split in too many directions, of losing myself, of doing everything wrong. Roman sat beside her. You won't. How do you know? Because you know yourself, and you love deep. That kind of love doesn't break, it stretches. She looked at him. And you? He smiled. I'm terrified, but I've never been more ready to learn. She leaned on his shoulder. You know we're not going to sleep for 2 years, right? I've already said goodbye to my eyebrows. She laughed. Hard. That helped. Later that week, Roman came home with a package. What's this? Isla asked. He set it on the counter. Open it. Inside, 2 tiny onesies. One said, plot twist. The other said, sequel. Isla covered her mouth, laughing through tears. You're ridiculous, she said. He grinned, just preparing for chaos, with style. Isla had always believed in preparation, but nothing prepares you for a 2 a.m. call that starts with your mother's name and ends in silence. Roman heard the phone ring too. He sat up before Isla even spoke. Her voice cracked. My mom collapsed. They were on the road in 20 minutes. No luggage, no plan, just motion. The hospital was on the south side, close to Ayla's childhood neighborhood. When they arrived, the lights felt too bright, the seats too hard. Her childhood best friend, now a nurse, met them in the hallway. She's stable, the woman said, but she fainted in church. Low blood sugar, maybe stress. She's been pushing herself too hard. Isla's eyes filled. She didn't tell me anything. She didn't want to worry you. You've got a lot going on. Roman stood beside her, hand on her back. He didn't speak, just stayed there. Steady. Isla's mother looked smaller in the hospital bed. Frail, older than she remembered. Mom, Isla whispered, tears brimming. Her mother smiled weakly. Stop crying. It's not my funeral. Isla gave a broken laugh and took her hand. You scared me. Now you know how I felt when you didn't call for 2 days. Roman chuckled quietly in the background. Roman, bring me that juice, her mother said, waving a bony hand. I'm not dying thirsty. Later, Isla sat by the bed as her mother dozed off. Roman stepped into the hallway. Joan was already calling. How bad is it? She asked. She'll be okay, Roman said. But Isla's not leaving tonight. You heading back? Roman hesitated, then said, no, I'll stay. Whatever she needs. Joan paused. You sure? I wasn't there when she had to face hard things before. I won't miss it again. By morning, Isla's mother was demanding pancakes, and Ayla was making them in her mother's tiny kitchen. Roman stood at the counter, slicing fruit. Didn't expect this detour, huh? She asked. He glanced over. I think the universe expects us to practice before the twins get here. Practice what? Dropping everything when someone needs us. She stirred the batter slowly. You think I'll be like her? Only in the best ways. She never told me she was dizzy or tired. She didn't ask for help. Roman nodded. Then we do different. We ask. We tell. Isla leaned into him. I'm scared I won't catch it in time with our kids, that I'll miss something. You won't. And if I do, I'll catch it with you. They stayed 3 days. Isla's mother made jokes every hour, called Roman taller than her patients, and tried to set him up with her nurse just to mess with Ayla. But beneath it all, Ayla saw something else. The slowing down, the forgetting, the small signs of age that didn't used to be there. When they got home, everything felt too fast. The crib deliveries, the registry reminders. Ayla sat on the couch one afternoon, holding the sonogram photo. Roman walked in and stopped. What's wrong? I feel like I'm behind. Behind what? Everything. The books say we should have names, a plan, a car seat already. Roman sat beside her. The books also said you'd get morning sickness for 12 weeks straight. You didn't. She smiled faintly. True. He kissed her temple. We're doing our best. That's what they'll remember. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you think I'm changing? He turned to face her. I think you're becoming more of who you were already meant to be. A week later, Roman surprised her with a weekend trip. Nothing big, just a lakeside cabin, a fireplace, 2 cozy chairs, no baby talk, no wedding details, just space to breathe. They cooked together, slept in, read. Roman told her stories about his childhood he'd never said out loud. Isla shared dreams she hadn't voiced since college. At night, they curled into each other like the world could wait. And maybe it could. On the last night, Isla sat on the porch watching the moon reflect over the water. Roman brought out a blanket and wrapped it around her. I didn't know I needed this, she said. He nodded. Me neither. She looked up. You still scared? Every day. But now I know the fear doesn't win unless we stop showing up. She kissed him. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Sure, like the future had already decided to be kind. It started with a letter, not an email, not a text. A handwritten envelope slipped between the morning mail, addressed to Ayla Kael. Roman had already left for a site visit. Ayla opened it slowly, careful not to tear the script. Inside, a single page, from Celine. Dear Ayla, I know we haven't spoken since the wedding. I meant to reach out before now, but I also wanted to wait until it felt right, not obligated. I've been thinking about our conversation, about your kindness, your honesty, your patience. I've spent the past few months untangling my life from places I no longer belong. And in that process, I found something I think belongs to you. Enclosed is a deed to a small art studio space. It used to be mine. I never found use for it after the divorce. But you turn empty spaces into something sacred. It's yours now. No strings. No shadows. Thank you for giving peace a place to grow. Warmly. Celine. Isla stared at the paper, then at the legal envelope attached. She read it twice, then again. Roman walked in minutes later, dust on his blazer. You're not gonna believe this, she said. He saw her face and froze. What happened? She gave me a building. Who did? Celine. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. They drove to the address that afternoon. It was tucked on a quiet street in Lincoln Park, an old brick building with tall windows and an iron sign that read, The Atelier. Inside, dust, light, forgotten canvases, and possibility. Isla walked through the rooms slowly. Roman followed behind, quiet. Why do I feel like this place has been waiting for me? She asked. Because it has, he said. They cleaned for hours, opened the windows, swept cobwebs, found a dozen old frames, half-finished sketches, Roman dusted off a corner and sat on a stool. "She didn't owe us this," he said. "No," Isla replied, "but she gave it anyway." He looked at her. "Are you okay with that?" She thought for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes, because this isn't about her anymore. It's about what we build now." By sunset, they'd made a plan. The atelier would be Isla's design studio. But more than that, it would be a community space for artists, mothers, creatives, a place for rebuilding, just like they had. That night, Isla sat by her laptop, drafting her first vision board in months. Roman walked in with hot tea. "You're glowing," he said. "I forgot how good it feels to dream again," she replied. He sat beside her. "You never stopped. You just paused." She leaned her head on his. "And somehow, peace keeps finding us in unexpected places. Maybe because we're finally making room for it." 3 days later, a package arrived. Inside, a canvas, painted, a portrait of Isla, laughing, not posing, just caught in joy. The note simply read, "I found this in a sketchbook I forgot to throw away. Thought you should have it." Roman stared at it. "Did she paint this?" Isla nodded. "I think she started, but never finished." Roman looked at her. "You want to keep it?" Isla smiled. "I want to frame it." Later, while sorting through more of the studio space, Isla found an old journal hidden in the back of a drawer. Blank pages. She took it home. And that night, she wrote, "Today, I accepted a gift from someone who once haunted my relationship. But peace isn't pretending something didn't happen. It's deciding how you want to live now that it did." Roman saw her writing and asked, "For the babies?" "For me," she whispered. "So I don't forget how far we've come." It started with a sharp breath. Isla was painting in the studio when her brush slipped. Then came the cramp. Low, tight, deep. She sat still, holding her stomach. Not panic, but not peace either. The babies weren't due for another 3 weeks. But her body had different plans. Roman arrived 10 minutes later. She didn't need to call him. He said he just felt it. When he saw her standing by the window, hand on her belly, he dropped everything. "What is it?" She looked at him, calm but focused. "They're coming." The drive to the hospital was quiet. No music. Just breath. And Roman's hand in hers. They got a corner suite. Private. Soft lights. The nurse said the contractions were close, but not too close yet. "First time, Mom?" Isla nodded. "Let's pace ourselves." "You've got this." Roman paced the room when Ayla rested. He adjusted pillows. He refilled her water every 15 minutes. But mostly, he stayed close. Silent. Present. Around midnight, the pain deepened. Isla gripped the rails. Roman moved to her side. She was sweating now, breathing hard. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can. I'm not ready. What if something goes wrong?" Roman leaned in. "Then I'll be right here. Either way." Her eyes filled. "I'm scared. So am I." He took her hand. "But fear doesn't get to run this room." "You do." She nodded slowly and screamed as another contraction came. Hours passed. Time lost shape. There was just pain. Then silence. Then more pain. Roman didn't leave once. He counted. He whispered. He sang softly when she asked him to. "You're doing perfect," he told her. "No, I'm cursing," she gasped. "Even better. Means you're close." They both laughed. It was cracked, raw, real. At dawn, the doctor came in. "It's time." Isla stared at the ceiling. "I can't feel my legs." Roman smiled. "You don't need legs. You've got fire." She looked at him. "I love you." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I've loved you since you cussed me out in that broken-down Uber." The doctor laughed. "Okay, lovebirds, let's meet your twins." It was chaos. Pushing, crying, instructions flying. But then, a cry, and then another. 2 voices. Tiny, sharp, alive. Isla collapsed into tears. Roman fell to his knees. The nurse laid them on Ayla's chest. Two, one with a dark curl on her forehead, the other squinting at the light like he already had opinions. Isla laughed through tears. "Hi." Roman hovered, silent, then kissed each tiny head. "Welcome home." Later, when the nurses left and the room quieted, Roman sat by the bed, his hand on Ayla's arm. "You okay?" She nodded. "I feel like I died and came back." He chuckled. "You kind of did." She turned to him. "I was so scared, Roman. But then I saw you, and it felt like nothing could go wrong." He didn't speak. She looked closer. His eyes were red. "Are you crying?" He sniffed. "No." She raised an eyebrow. He exhaled. "A little." She smiled. "Why?" "Because I didn't know I had this in me. The strength to watch you break open and not fall apart." She reached for his hand. "You didn't fall apart. You held everything together." They sat in silence. Then Isla whispered, "What do we name them?" Roman grinned. "I thought you'd never ask." They chose names that night, names that meant light and roots, names that carried both their histories and none of their ghosts. And as the moonlight poured into the room, Roman leaned down and whispered to his children, "I'm not perfect, but I'm here, and I will never ask you to choose peace at the cost of who you are." Isla smiled. "Now that's a promise worth keeping." 6 months later, the wind outside rustled through early spring leaves, brushing against the curtains of their new home. Isla stood barefoot in the nursery, humming softly as she rocked one of the twins in her arms. The room was painted soft sage and cream, sunlight filtering through sheer white drapes. Roman was on the floor with their son, stacking colorful blocks, grinning every time they tumbled. No press, no statements, just life, real, quiet, earned. The wedding had come and gone. No headlines, only 50 guests, close ones. Family. They married in a lakeside garden where their story had once paused. This time, there was no ultimatum, no conditions, just truth. Roman had stood there, hands trembling, voice steady. "I used to think peace meant control. But then I met you, and you taught me peace means choosing each other every day, even when it's hard." Isla's vows had been simpler. "I don't need a perfect man. I need a present one. You've become that, for me, for our children, for yourself." Their vows weren't rehearsed. They were real. Celine hadn't attended, but she'd sent flowers, white peonies, and a single line handwritten on a note, "May your beginnings be freer than your endings." Isla had cried, not for what was lost, but for what was finally released. Now, with the twins cooing, Isla moved through their home with new rhythm. The townhouse in Hyde Park had been traded for a brick and glass haven not far from the studio. There was space to breathe, to laugh, to cry without being watched. Roman worked fewer hours. His company had grown, but he stopped letting growth define him. And Ayla? She had a wait list for design clients again. But she turned many down. She only took projects that made her heart beat. She said yes with intention now, because for so long, she hadn't. One evening, Roman stood in the kitchen, watching Ayla dance barefoot with their daughter. No music, just her humming. He dried his hands and leaned against the counter. "You still do that," he said. She looked up. "Do what?" "Dance when no one's asking you to." She grinned. "I didn't need permission back then, and I don't need it now." He nodded. "That's what I fell in love with." A beat passed. Then she asked, "What did you fall in love with now?" He stepped closer. "That you never let my past silence your present." She leaned her head on his chest. "I was afraid I wouldn't be strong enough to stay." He kissed her forehead. "You didn't stay. You walked away until we were both strong enough to return." They stood in silence. Then the twins squealed, and laughter filled the room. That weekend, they hosted a brunch. Nothing fancy, just a few friends, family, food. Roman's mother brought a homemade peach cobbler. Isla's cousin brought a new camera and insisted on candids. At one point, someone asked Roman, "Is this what you imagined marriage would be like?" He smiled. No. It's better. The guest laughed. Seriously? Roman took Ayla's hand. I imagined something flawless, something planned. But this is real. We fought for this. We failed for this. And now we wake up every day and choose it. That's more than I ever knew to ask for. Ayla squeezed his hand. You used to think love was a strategy, she teased. He laughed. Now I know. It's a surrender. After the guests left and the babies were asleep, Ayla stepped out onto the porch. Roman followed with 2 mugs of tea. They sat in quiet for a while. The breeze carried the soft scent of rain and grass. I used to think endings came with explosions, Ayla said. But sometimes they come with peace. Roman nodded. I used to be afraid of peace, thought it meant I was missing something. And now, he looked at her. Now I know peace doesn't mean something's gone. It means we've stopped carrying what doesn't belong to us. She smiled. I never wanted a fairy tale, she said. Roman kissed her fingers. And I never needed saving. Just someone who'd stand beside me while I saved myself. Inside, the twins stirred. A soft cry. Roman stood up. I got them. Ayla leaned back in her chair, watching the man she'd once walked away from carry their children, with hands no longer closed in fear, but wide open, ready. The porch was still. The sun had dipped just enough to cast everything in soft gold. Ayla sat cross-legged on the old bench swing, sketchpad balanced on her knees. She wasn't working. Not officially. She was drawing the twins from memory, how their curls framed their round cheeks when they slept side by side. Roman sat nearby on the steps, sipping water from a glass. In the yard, the kids played. Kai toddled first toward the butterfly bush, then turned and charged toward his father. Mira squealed in protest, determined not to be left behind. Roman scooped them both up, spinning gently. Their laughter filled the evening air. Ayla paused, letting the moment sink in like warmth. I never thought silence could feel full, she said. Roman turned. That's because, for a long time, it was empty. This silence is earned, she nodded. Isn't it strange? We thought the wedding would be the thing, the moment. But this is the forever part. Roman walked toward her, a baby on each hip. Weddings are noise. This is music. She took Mira into her arms. I think we finally figured out how to stop performing. Roman sat beside her. I used to believe healing meant pretending I'd never been hurt. Ayla looked over. And now? I think healing means choosing softness, even after pain. Mira curled against Ayla's chest. Kai rubbed his eyes, already drifting. The swing rocked gently. Roman's hand found Ayla's. No grip, no tension, just presence. She looked down at their fingers. You know, she whispered, we never divided the important things. Roman glanced at her. What do you mean? The love, the grief, the hope. We tried to protect each other by splitting the pain, assigning fault, negotiating peace. She looked up. But none of that ever touched what mattered. The important things, we never let go. Roman leaned forward and kissed her hand. This time, he said softly, I won't leave anything behind. Their twins slept. The porch glowed. No camera crews, no perfect posts, no staged pictures. Just a man, a woman, 2 babies. And the truth that survival was not their greatest victory. Love was. Because it didn't arrive flawless. It arrived tired but willing. Messy but consistent. Late but honest. They had fought for it. Stepped away when it wasn't safe. Returned when they were ready. And now they were building something they'd never seen modeled. A love that didn't ask for parts. A life that honored the whole. Roman tilted his head back, watching the last light fade. Do you think they'll remember this? Ayla looked at the children in her arms. No, but they'll feel it, and they'll carry it forward. He turned to her again. That's enough for me. She smiled. Me too. The wind picked up. Ayla closed her sketchpad. Inside, a new chapter waited. Not the loud kind. Not the dramatic one. Just the kind built with daily choices. quiet, true, steady, and without condition. Sometimes love doesn't come easy. It's not about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up, choosing each other when it's hard, learning how to speak after the silence. If you've ever been in a place where you had to walk away, not because you stopped loving someone, but because you needed to heal first, you're not alone. Isla didn't stay to prove anything. She left to protect her peace. And Roman, he didn't chase with ego. He waited with growth. That's what makes this story powerful. It reminds us that love without trust is noise, and love with truth, it's quiet but lasting. So let me ask you, have you ever had to let go of something just so you could return stronger? Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't know how to ask? If this story made you pause, if it reminded you of your own journey, if it gave you hope that healing and love can exist in the same story, leave A in the comments. Tell us one thing you've learned about love, even if it came the hard way. And if you're new here, or you've been quietly watching for a while, subscribe, like, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the truth is, we don't need perfect endings. We just need beginnings that are honest.